I'm here to present on Goal 4, promoting desired change through planning and design. And so this goal, if you think about it, is really related to the structural framework in our planning and design guidelines for the city and where we move forward from here and how we use that and how we make improvements to that. And it's really how we looked at that in going forward. These are the members of the group that participated in, along with myself. Okay, introduction. So we had a number of meetings to talk about this, and we went through all the topics, and then we kind of, in an overview, and then we got into more of the details, and then really focusing on what specific actions could we develop to really put this into place and develop, like I said, that structural framework for our community to move forward into the next generation of planning and design, and to do it, you know, in an orderly fashion. We prioritized all the 3 objectives in the goal, and I'll go through that in just a second. And then to just add more emphasis, we renumbered the objectives with this particular group. We thought that was important so that you get this sense of where the priority was. And then we just wanted to focus on the fact that our main priority, we decided to add a lot of new action items. Those are just really the teeth or the mechanisms by which we wanted to show that these things really need to get done in order to put that objective into place. So we had these 3 objectives to work with, and we prioritized maintain rural small town character. And immediately at the first meeting, this one rose to the top. I think folks in our group really expressed that desire to this is Buellton, this is really what we want it to be. So how can we maintain that as our primary theme? And you'll see as I go through it is that we developed a number of action items related to that we think are going to be important to make that happen. The second thing was Objective 4.2, promote attractive and well neighborhood districts. And this really kind of relates to more on a neighborhood level. What can we do to create districts that are built uniformly or planned in accordance to certain structures that are in place. And then the last one was provide an environment that appeals to both residents and visitors. And this kind of cuts across a number of things that the groups that have talked about already before, is the fact that we have our community, and then we also have visitors, and we want to appeal to that. So maintaining a rural small town character. As I indicated, this was our top priority. And then we identified the fact that one of the top action items under this was to look at our community design guidelines and then revise those and take some effort into doing that. A new action item that we added was to look at bringing in an independent body, a board of architectural review, that would take a place in that planning process. Review and modify the existing ministerial process for development projects. That was something we thought was important that needed to get done. And then also look at and strengthen the existing permit process for development review in the city. So there was a lot of discussion and concerns about how a project gets through the system, and to make sure that that approved plan gets put into effect the way it was intended. This is focusing on the community design guidelines. We just saw that this was going to kind of be the core document for which we could use as the tool for the ADR, if that's put into place, Planning Commission, to follow as far as the design that would be used in certain developments. And also, we felt that it would be helpful to guide design choices for developers and builders as they come in, that they're not left with such a wide palette. They would be able to choose from that. As I mentioned before, this would be a guiding document for developers, builders, property owners, as to the proper choices to make. And one of the things that came up in our last meeting was just something that we wanted to focus in on, was that it would allow that future design, future development would contain harmony and scale with form-based design. And this is just a picture of how you know, a one-block parcel might look in how it's designed, less on function and uses and zoning mandates, but more on, you know, the facade and how it would look. And so that was something that we gathered some additional material that was supplement to when we had to submit, that if you're interested in, we could provide that to you. Another important element was that I mentioned before was the establishment of the Board of Architectural Review. This is something that's fairly common in other cities. It's an independent body that looks at design elements only of development projects and making sure that they're developed in accordance with the design guidelines that are adopted by the community. And we thought this was an important process. Right now, our understanding is this function's held by the Planning Commission, and so keeping that separate would be a way to have kind of an independent process where these people that aren't responsible necessarily for clearing that project would just looking at the design elements of the project. And it could be comprised in a number of ways. Two specifically that we thought about were developing a group of local professionals, architects, landscape architects, designers that would volunteer for the committee. Or we could also, one idea was use the county central bar, which is a standing committee of the county of Santa Barbara for the central part of the county, and they look at development projects in the unincorporated area. This related to just the review of the ministerial planning process, and a couple of the actions that we identified were that specific to the council is that they look at ways to prepare the guidelines that would specify limitations on any ministerial modifications, so that there's a clear process as to which where exemptions lie and where they don't. And I think there's a lot of stuff right now that we just wanted to make sure that they had a guiding plan and something more stringent to be able to follow. And that reports for minor and major modifications are submitted to city manager and council. We did meet with Mark. He was happy to attend one of our meetings, and he went through the planning process for those of us that weren't as initiated, and we thank him for that. And some of the things that came up after we met with him was the fact that these are particular actions to help strengthen the permit process for development review. That we wanted to make sure the city had more active involvement after zoning clearance. Some city involvement prior to occupancy. Like I mentioned again, clearly defined minor modifications that would be that could be going through the system. Develop a process for informing agencies on development, informing residents, adjacent property owners of a project that's been approved. And then define and adhere the development intake process, the process for when a project comes to the city, and that it follows that process through an orderly fashion. Preliminary review, submittal of fees, staff review time, go to the ABR, that would be put into effect, Planning Commission, and then the council action if necessary. This was our second priority, was promoting attractive in neighborhoods and districts. And this had a lot of crossover into priority one. It used a lot of the same action items. And so I'm not going to go into all those in the same detail, but again, the core document was the community design guidelines, the establishment of the Board of Architectural Review. And then one additional thing that I'll touch on, and I touched on one of the other presentations, that was mentioned in this was the development of the Bike and Ped Master Plan. And just how it relates to this particular objective related to neighborhoods and districts, we just felt that the Bike and Ped Master Plan focused on those corridors that are highly used for those modes of travel, such as Avenue of Flags, 246, Central Avenue, McMurray, and others. And in reviewing that document just in the draft form, it does do that, and how we can take the existing resource that we have and move them into kind of the next level for taking perhaps a roadway that can be made into a more Class 2 facility, or identifying Class 1 facilities in the community that can be developed at some point in the future. And ultimately, you know, what that would mean for our community is that it would provide an environment where people would feel safer and more equipped to take local trips by walking and by riding their bike. Priority 3, this was our third priority, and we just, you know, we supported the action items that were in, you know, the vision plan. Primarily, I just mentioned 3 of them here, was the wayfinding and signage program, definitely another way of communicating to the community of where particular features are in our community and letting folks know. Gateway signage to the city might be something that would be of interest in promoting in concert with the branding effort that would be going on. And still allowing any of this development or changes in our community would still have to, you know, make those practical elements still available, ample parking for commercial use and that type of thing. So just in conclusion, I wanted to reinforce the fact that under priority 4.1, you know, we really strongly felt that this rose to the top, that maintaining our small town and rural community was very important, and the backbone of that is really getting those design guidelines in place, getting that Board of Architectural Review, the design committee in place, and looking at our planning process from a number of different perspectives that are outlined in our work plan and the modifications that we made. The second priority was continue to move into that area where we make attractive neighborhoods and districts. And one of the things here was complete the Avenue of the Flag study. We supported that, and also the Bike and Ped Master Plan. And the last part was just how we make the environment appealing to our residents and visitors, and that's been discussed a lot today. Some of the things I mentioned before was the gateway elements, the signage program in downtown, and maintaining ample parking for people that would come and visit and people that travel through our town. And if there's any questions on this, we also had a number of active members in our group that could also help answer this.
Did you have any ideas about truck parking?
I know Ron may have, he had some ideas as to, depending on how the Avenue of the Flags was ultimately developed. I know there's a number of options on how that could be incorporated into that, but we didn't get into a lot of details about that. But we just thought it was something that needed to be considered in any development, because we know that it's something that is used and utilized right now.
If we develop a master plan for Buellton, these are elements that cannot be ignored. Just like the last city council meeting, we need public restrooms where people will congregate. We need ample parking. And I'm hoping that with the corridor study coming together, that we'll have something that's practical, that we can afford to build. But we see about 3 areas where we can accommodate RVs, large trucks. You probably know this town better than anybody as far as it's a piece of dirt. Yeah. But, and so people like you have to tell us where it makes sense. But it should be off of our corridor, and I hope that that's an element that our corridor study will reveal. We can't forget that we have inherited a highway. Our downtown is an abandoned highway. And so without some kind of concept that's practical to put all these things together, nothing's ever going to happen in Buellton. And there's a lot of us that are tired of waiting. We've waited 20 years. It's time to get started. If we don't get started, it's never going to happen. And something that's missing in this is we have to have the right people on staff, in our community. We have to have money. All of these things come together. But we just don't want to ignore an element like restrooms, parking, or you'll never get your cultural center. All these things have to work together.
It's a good segue to the next group, which is...
Yeah, and by the way, I did want to make a point, because I know that, Ron, your thing is about the size of this town. Cloverdale, California, where my brother lived, Highway 101 was right through it. They closed it down, built it around. The town is thriving now more than it ever has. They made it into something really special. Fridays they have little art centers, they have farmers markets and et cetera. So it can happen to our great town here. We just have to persevere.
Absolutely.